all the ideas are starting to come through. All the ideas are starting to come through, so that's nice, isn't it? So, many things want to come through, but I'm going to try and anchor it a little bit into the psychology of change. Why change feels so strange, and what we could... So my iPad's going a bit crazy in the background of one of the ideas I wanted to go, but I think we're going to focus on psychology of change today. Who knows where we're going to go. This is new. It's strange for me because it's new and it's unfamiliar. But yeah, we're going to be talking a little bit about the nature of change, why change feels so strange, and what you can do if the goals that you actually want to work towards feel too big. Ways to almost practice navigating that sensation of change in a way that feels slightly less threatening. So, lots of you may have heard of the concept. I'm wiggling around, so it's new for me. Lots of you may be familiar with a term called neuroplasticity, and it's one of my favourite. Those in the inner circle of the therapy world, anyone who's worked with me will know about a video that I always refer to called it's just neuroplasticity. I can't remember who's by it. It says it actually better than I do, but I'll try and kind of talk about it in the way that kind of makes sense. And I'll see if I can post a link of the video somewhere in the comments. Waffle. So, neuroplasticity, I guess, is the vibe that previously it was thought that after sort of a certain stage of life, our brains stopped having the capacity to make changes. But what we now know, so science-backed, is that every single human being on the planet, right, has the capacity to be able to make changes, no matter how old we are, no matter who we are. Our brains they're sort of malleable, right? No matter no matter what age we are or what we've been through, we have the capacity to be able to make psychological and practical changes. So, and if you're a bit like me, I get a bit hyper-focused on things. So sometimes you find me on like a YouTube spiral looking at things like the neurons or whatever. And what's really interesting, if you do go down the rabbit hole, like as I do, and you look at this process, if you imagine, okay, so I'm right-handed, so I'm very in the habit of using my right hand. But if I break my arm, and I'm not able to use this and suddenly I have to start using my left hand, it's going to feel really weird and uncomfortable. But then after 6 months, because I'm kind of, there's an ice cream van. Not really well practiced this yet, am I? Haven't even closed the windows. Well done, Catherine. Well done, Catherine. Holding you with love. The compassionate voice comes in. But after 6 months of using the left hand, it's going to feel more comfortable because we've done it. So neuroplasticity is this concept of basically rewiring our brain with repetitive practice. And it's why recovery can feel like such a bastard, or making new changes can feel just so challenging, because that repetitive element is absolutely fundamental to our ability to be able to make changes. So if you, again, coming back to the neurons, if you Google them, you watch them, you sort of see them, they're like, they haven't quite found their new pathway, which is why when you do something new, you're out your comfort zone, it's like, what am I doing, right? But eventually they click. It's like, when you think about something in a new way or have a new conversation. So again, if you're still with me, we haven't had this conversation before, in this exact sense. So actually, but it's something's clicking. First time we do it, it's like, it's a bit like a new sort of wiring kind of takes place within the brain. And then the more we travel that pathway, so again, coming back to the broken arm analogy or metaphor, I always get confused with what is what, but actually the more we use this, the more we practice this new skill, the more comfortable. So all of us, there was a pre-pandemic and then there was pandemic, and before the pandemic most of my work was in person, and then during the pandemic most of my work became online. And at first the online work was like, what is going on? I just couldn't get my bearings with it. But over time and with practice, it's become the new normal. So actually, I do both. I do virtual and in-person sessions, but actually, really comfortable. Like, this wouldn't have been able to happen, I don't think, pre-pandemic, because actually the pandemic kind of like forced me to kind of get comfortable with a new normal. And again, those that have worked in therapy with me will know that I often tell a story. And I think the reason I share this story a lot is because I think it's a really de-shaming and important piece of the recovery puzzle. that we don't beat ourselves up when we habitually fall back to the more entrenched pathway, the pathway that we are more in the habit of traveling. So I tell this story about living at home, and have lived where I live for a really long time, and we always had a toilet where the chain was sort of in the air. So I go to the toilet, flush the chain with my left hand, and then quite a while ago now, but we got a new toilet and the chain became flushable here. So, but what tends to happen is that even now it happens with, like, we had a rewiring of our house, so there was like light switches in different places. I'll go for this invisible chain that no longer exists, but it's because my brain is in the habit, almost like a muscle memory, of traveling this pathway. Yes, it's much more kind of well-versed in practicing this now, the more we continue on this journey, but there's still this and the reason I offer that is because it's a really important, really vital, one of the most important things to understand about recovery is that you will travel down the old pathway sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with you by traveling down the old pathway. Lapses, for example, are a very normal part of the recovery experience because we're in the habit of choosing one pathway. So actually, choosing recovery it's a new pathway. It's like, it's not the new normal yet at the beginning of recovery, and even later down the line in recovery, it can be a bit like, even if you're been recovered for a really long time, you might get the occasional little flicker, because again, this almost becomes this sort of dormant neural pathway in our minds. But yeah, so actually the psychology of change feels weird until it's not weird anymore. And the only way it becomes not weird anymore is by repeated practice and patience and compassion with the nature of making change. So I hope some of that made sense. This is my first, I guess, speaking to you about a concept, an idea. But I think, neuroplasticity being a really important piece of the recovery puzzle to be aware of. Because I think sometimes we start therapy or we start the healing journey and we're like, well, I want to be better. I don't want to have to do all this practice. I don't want to have to take all this time to unlearn and relearn all of these new skills. But the only way we will ever make changes is with practice and repetition and leaning in gently beyond our comfort zones, like those kind of little neurons, finding the new neural pathways and then traveling them. So again, if the bigger changes in your life feel more frightening, so something I found really helpful was, I used to be someone who only had bright red nails for about 10 years. So then there was this journey of me going to bright orange and feeling really weird about that for a while. It sounds a bit strange, but I'm quite sensitive. I'm neurodivergent. I'm very sensitive to kind of shifts in environment and colours and sounds, and now you won't catch me having the same nail colour twice now. But that took years of being bright red to bright orange, and then bright orange to wherever I went. I think there was a bright green phase, but it was and actually now I don't always get the perfect nail colour for me. I'm always sometimes but what has changed is my tolerance and ability to kind of tolerate something that might not be my favourite colour. So if you don't have false nails like me, or you're not interested in that, other ways you can practice this idea of getting comfortable with the navigation of the sensation of change is by just playing around with doing things a little bit differently. So for example, I'm right-handed. The norm would be for me to drink my cup of tea with my right hand. Lovely. Didn't get too cold yet, even though I'm waffling a lot. So another practice can be, I'm just going to practice picking this up with my left hand. And then I'll notice this does feel a bit weird actually. But then we come into okay, change can feel weird. Change can feel unsafe. It doesn't mean it is unsafe. And again, if I lost the ability to use this hand, over time this would eventually become the new normal. We can try it with, if we're used to just going the same route every day, we can try taking a different pathway actually in the real world. We can try it with anything. I won't go into micro changes right now. Those that know me well will know that I'm obsessed with the power of a micro change. But for now, we'll leave this here. I think probably under 10 minutes is probably for the best. But, the question being then, what is one thing that you could do differently to allow yourself to practice navigating the sensation of change feeling unsafe but actually being safe. I'll see you guys soon.